Chicago, November 22nd, 1987. It was a cold Sunday night. Across the city, families sat quietly in their living rooms. The soft blue glow of television screens flickered against dark walls, while football highlights played on WGN-TV. Nothing seemed unusual, but in less than a minute, millions of people would witness something so strange, so disturbing, that nearly 40 years later, nobody has forgotten it, and nobody knows who did it. At exactly 9:14 p.m., the sports broadcast suddenly froze. The audio crackled, then the screen went black. For a second, viewers assumed the station was having technical problems. But then, someone appeared. A man wearing a rubber Max Headroom mask slowly swayed in front of the camera. Behind him spun a giant sheet of corrugated metal. The lighting was harsh. The image shook slightly, and the figure stared directly into the camera like he knew millions of people were watching him. No voice, only static. The masked intruder rocked back and forth silently for 30 seconds, before the broadcast abruptly returned to normal. Inside the station, engineers panicked. Someone had hijacked live television, and they had absolutely no idea how. To understand how terrifying this was in 1987, you need to understand television itself. Back then, TV stations transmitted signals through giant microwave relay systems mounted on skyscrapers across Chicago. The system wasn't digital, it wasn't encrypted. And if someone had enough technical knowledge, enough power, they could theoretically overpower the real broadcast signal with their own. But almost nobody could actually pull it off. You would need expensive transmission equipment, engineering expertise, detailed frequency knowledge, and perfect timing. This wasn't a teenager with a prank camera. This was someone who knew exactly what they were doing. And before the station could even process what had happened, the hijacker came back. 2 hours later, at 11:15 p.m., Chicago's PBS station WTTW was airing an episode of Doctor Who. The episode had barely begun when suddenly the screen cut out again. This time, there was no silence. The same masked figure appeared, but now you could hear him. And what came next felt like something from a nightmare. The voice was distorted and metallic, like a broken robot trying to imitate a human being. The figure rambled nonsensically about Coca-Cola and New Coke. He waved around a Pepsi can. He mocked television personalities. At one point, he hummed the theme song from an obscure 1950s cartoon called Clutch Cargo. Nothing made sense. The entire thing felt chaotic, unpredictable, almost dangerous, like the viewers had accidentally interrupted someone else's reality. Then suddenly, the figure bent over, and from somewhere off camera, a woman appeared holding a fly swatter. She began spanking the masked intruder while he screamed dramatically through the mask. The camera shook violently, the audio screeched, and then the signal cut. Doctor Who returned instantly. Mid-scene, as if nothing had happened, but something had happened. Millions of people had just watched one of the strangest broadcasts in television history, and nobody could explain it. The next morning, Chicago exploded with rumors. Newspapers covered the incident immediately. Phone lines flooded with calls. Some people thought it was performance art. Others believed it was a political statement. A few were genuinely terrified because the hijacking proved something deeply unsettling, Someone had taken control of live television, and the authorities were powerless to stop them. The FCC launched an emergency investigation. The FBI became involved soon after. Broadcast signal intrusion was a federal crime, and the government needed answers fast. But investigators quickly discovered something alarming. The hijacker had successfully interrupted two completely different television stations, using different transmission paths on different frequencies. That meant this person wasn't just talented, they were extremely skilled, possibly professional, possibly someone who worked in broadcasting itself. Theories spread everywhere. Some suspected a disgruntled TV engineer. Others believed the hijacker belonged to Chicago's underground hacker scene, groups known in the 1980s as freakers. These were tech obsessives who manipulated telephone systems, radio equipment, and early computer networks long before internet hacking became mainstream. Whoever did this understood systems most people never even thought about, and they had turned that knowledge into a performance, a deeply disturbing one. But perhaps the creepiest detail was the choice of character. Max Headroom wasn't random. In the late 1980s, Max Headroom was famous across America. He was marketed as the world's first computer-generated TV host, except he wasn't actually computer-generated. It was an actor wearing heavy prosthetic makeup pretending to be artificial. The character represented media manipulation, corporate television, technology, artificial reality, and somehow that made the hijacking even more disturbing, because for 90 seconds, the fake television character became real, and he took over actual television. Years passed. The investigation slowly died. No arrests were ever made. No official suspects were identified. The FCC file technically remained open, but eventually the trail went cold. Then, decades later, internet investigators revisited the mystery. In 2010, a Reddit user claimed they knew who was responsible. According to them, the hijacking had been carried out by two brothers connected to Chicago's underground tech scene. The details sounded believable, but there was no evidence, no proof, no confession, and no one was ever charged. To this day, the people behind the Max Headroom incident remain unidentified.